Well, welcome everyone to a special online event today called Reclaiming Your Body's Innate Guidance System: How to Listen to Your Bones and 5 More Wisdom Areas to Heal Trauma and Increase Intuition. My name is Stephen Dinant. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be hosting today's program because I get to learn right alongside you from a true expert in the body intelligence field, is really at the leading edge of our understanding of how we access a greater field of intelligence and awareness, how we release trauma, how we really learn to live in an enjoyable and flourishing way in our bodies. Suzanne Scurlock-Durana is the leading conscious awareness instructor, and she's known for her methods for awakening the body's innate wisdom. She created the comprehensive Healing from the Core training curriculum in 1994, and she runs international workshops, webinars. She's one of the original instructors, mentored by John Upledger, and also continues to teach craniosacral and somato-emotional release, so many different techniques. And she's also taught some really fantastic programs for the Shift Network that have been very well attended and gotten great reception, because it really feels like this is a missing link in our understanding of how we awaken in a very full spectrum embodied way and live in a way that really allows us to thrive. So thank you so much for joining us here today, Suzanne.
Thank you, Stephen. It's really a pleasure to be here with you again. I have thoroughly enjoyed this entire series with the Shift Network. You're an incredible organization, and I'm excited by what you're bringing into the world and me being a part of it. Thanks.
Great. Well, we're always interested in what's at the leading edge, and so we're going to explore a lot of that today and how it relates to people's very real needs to clear trauma and have a really healthy, happy relationship with their bodies. And I want to let everyone know up front that we'll have a chance to go much deeper with Suzanne in an upcoming training called Reclaiming Your 6 Body Wisdom Areas. So we'll hear a little bit about that towards the end of the hour. So, Suzanne, let's get a little bit of history first. I think it would be helpful for people to know a bit more about what brought you into this area, and it brought you to really recognizing how important this was for you and for the larger world to really be accessing body intelligence.
Well, I will say that my work as a craniosacral therapist and as a teacher of craniosacral therapy has informed my interest in the body itself, because I had done many, many different meditation trainings and shamanic trainings and Eastern tradition things like Tai Chi and Qigong. And but what was fascinating for me is, because I was working with people at a physical level in doing craniosacral therapy, I was seeing that the things that go on for people emotionally and spiritually, and how they feel about themselves, what they think about themselves, actually affects the ability of the body to have movement and flow. And when things get stuck in the body, or when someone's walking around with unprocessed overwhelm, which we could now call trauma, it impedes our thinking. It keeps us from being able to think clearly. It impedes our ability to connect with spirit, so our meditations are not as deep or easy. And it affects physically our health and our well-being. So by looking through this, I'll call it the window of the body in craniosacral therapy, was like I had a front row seat on how this wonderful container that we're all born with affects everything else. And so I began to really look at, through that lens, how can I help people be more embodied? Yeah.
Let's talk about we talked about the body's innate guidance system, and I think that's a really interesting term. That it's not just like being comfortable or at peace with our bodies, but our bodies actually can direct us in different ways than our conscious mind might be able to do. So, if you share a little bit about that and why there's a whole different range of sensitivities and sensibilities that actually make us wiser when we can act it and when we can contact them.
Well, I think one of the things in doing craniosacral therapy that I saw was that when someone could fully drop into and open up an area like the gut, that there was an intelligence in the gut that could guide someone and keep them out of trouble or out of danger, And I'll tell you a little story about that in a minute, about in my own life when I was 17. Um, it could also guide people when they were in a direction that was really right. Things would just feel right at that gut level, or a sense that it was right. I noticed that when people were feeling their hearts and the heart was open, and a lot of the work of Heart Math, the Heart Math Institute has been very helpful here for us in understanding the intelligence of the heart, that actually feeds and opens up clear thinking in the brain and the prefrontal cortex. So it's very fascinating. Then you take the pelvis, which has the engine of the body, and the capacity of the feet and legs to really get things moving, the depth of our bones. Each one of these areas, they were like neighborhoods, if you will, in the body, and each one of them had their own characteristic wisdom, which I find, and as I was studying this, I found this to be absolutely fascinating. I began to look around and to see, sure enough, if you look at our language, a lot of the idioms that we use actually reference this wisdom that most of us have forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've noticed in the political realm, for instance, people, it's very common to say, trust your gut. And it's like a lot, it's almost like a macho thing. Yeah, I trust my gut or something like that, which is actually, it's
Right.
speaking right into the body of work, is that the gut has a different
Right.
kind of wisdom sometimes about navigating situations. Maybe expand a little bit on what is the deeper wisdom of the gut and how can it be complementary to some of the other centers.
Well, see, your gut, it involves a lot. And actually, there's research that the Heart Math has just done, Institute has done recently, that the area of the torso in general, the gut and heart for sure together, that they actually have a capacity to track and feel and sense incoming data before it can even be seen, heard, or felt, which is a fascinating piece. How is it that the cells of our body have a level of intelligence that is far faster than anything else that we might be looking at in terms of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, or any of our other senses, actually? So, you understand what I'm saying here, that it's a very interesting piece to recognize that um, the gut has a knowing. Now, what you're also seeing, though, is that if people are operating out of just their gut, not listening to the heart or the pelvis or their feet or legs, if they get one hit from their gut and then fly into their brain and live there for a while, you can lose the wisdom that's going on in the gut. So yes, trusting the gut, big deal, big deal. And the the way that it integrates with everything else, all these other neighborhoods, is almost equally important.
I think that's such an important point you're making there, that it's like we want to have a whole system intelligence we're bringing to each thing. And you made the comment before this call that when we were talking about this program, is that most people really only have one or two wisdom centers open. So a political leader might be okay to have come from their gut, but then they actually aren't really in touch with their heart. And probably most of us aren't in touch with some of the other areas like the pelvis or the feet. So I'd love for you to share a little bit
Right.
about why it is that we might be oriented and just kind of start to trust or hang on to one area and then be neglect the other areas.
Well, here again, we come back to the whole idea that if you have certain areas of the body that when you hung out in this particular neighborhood inside of yourself, when you were a kid or when you were growing up, then there's a way in which um, you trust it more than other areas. And then there are general personality proclivities and things like that. Some people are just naturally more in their hearts. That's what's been modeled for them. Other people don't live anywhere close to their heart because their heart has been broken, because something has really, they have had big betrayal in their life. So they're in their gut, but they're not talking or listening to their heart. So that's a really pivotal relationship, by the way. The heart and the gut, let's put it this way, the heart and the gut are meant to be interconnected and to really be speaking with each other and doing everything that they can to partner with each other all the time, so that when we feel a deep inspiration of the heart, we do not just fly off with it without that gut knowing about whether it's right or wrong in this moment. And I really have to say, when I was 17, and I actually talk about this in Reclaiming Your Body as well as my book, Full Body Presence, I was strangled by a friend that was crashing on amphetamines. And he was like an older brother to me. So at a heart level, there was a huge sense of betrayal when that occurred. I almost died. But the most fascinating thing about that experience was that my gut was working in that event. It was telling me I had just this general sense of uneasiness throughout the 15, 20 minutes before this event occurred as we were just sitting talking together. And I kept discrediting my gut. I kept second guessing my gut. And I almost died from it. So not only did it shut down my heart because of the sense of betrayal, and this often happens for people when something bad happens and it's someone that you know or that you're in a family with or you're in relationship with. But it also, interestingly enough, it actually taught me that I had incoming data that I could pay attention to that I had not been paying attention to. And I swore to myself as I began to heal from that trauma that I would never not listen to my gut again. I would always listen to what it was saying, and I would not second guess it. And I have to say that has that's been a godsend for sure. Yeah.
That's a very powerful story, and it also speaks to something that we were talking a little bit about before today's call, just around how often it's trauma that shuts us down from different areas, and it doesn't have to be the big traumas like getting strangled, like something obvious. Sometimes it's these little traumas
Yeah.
that accumulate too that we may not think of as traumas.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was just speaking with a colleague recently, and her 40-something son had moved back in with her. And I asked what was going on, and she said, well, I can share this with you because you'll understand it. He doesn't seem to understand it yet, but he just finished retraining to become a radiology tech. And he was doing his last internship round in an ER, and someone bled out on him. They died while he was taking the x rays. And it was so traumatizing for him, although he's probably not even conscious of it, that he came home from that work that night and he finished the training, but I can't get him to actually apply for any jobs. He's frozen in place. His insides felt overwhelmed by something that didn't even physically happen to him. He wasn't he wasn't even responsible for it. It happened in front of him, but it was so overwhelming and traumatizing at the time that he just buried it and froze. And so this is a very interesting thing because if you were to ask this man, he would not say that he'd been traumatized. He doesn't know why he can't get his buns in gear and go find a job now that he's been retrained and in something that he was really fascinated by. He could even choose a realm where that would never come up again. He could choose the realm of being a radiology person, a tech in an orthopedist's office. He doesn't have to choose an emergency room. You see what I'm saying? So from logical mind's perspective, his logical mind is probably saying, oh, there wasn't nothing traumatic happened to us. Why are you frozen? Well, he's frozen because it was something about that event that really felt overwhelming. And there are thousands of very small things that happen for us as human beings all the time that we may not. In fact, in our minds, we may even be saying, oh, but that was just a very small thing. I know a lot of people that have gone through a whole lot worse than I'm going through right now. This isn't traumatic. And so they don't even recognize that the way that they're procrastinating about things or the way that they're avoiding things or the way that they can't feel a particular part of their body any longer.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. That's a very powerful story, and I think it does really illuminate how often just trauma doesn't mean we've been hit necessarily. It means we've been overwhelmed, and
Right.
that's a really important reframing that our system shuts down when we can't handle what's coming towards us, even if it's not, physically invasive. So I think that
Absolutely.
also,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'd love to build on that, and let's say how is it that, in a way, each of these six different body wisdom centers helps us navigate and helps us also, like when we bring things back online, how do we bring them back online so that we can really access this full spectrum intelligence that you're talking about before?
Well, one of the key pieces and the opening piece that I teach people is how to be aware of where they are in their bodies and where they are not. And this is a very key piece because most of us live here between our ears, and we are not even aware of how little sense of presence and and sensation, first order sensation we have from the neck down. And because I'm in a bodywork world, of course, I love to get people on the table and put my hands on them. But there are many, many different things that I've discovered that I can teach to help people embody more deeply and to reclaim their body, if you will. Because most of us have event by event by event, sometimes in the way that we're raised, sometimes the things that are modeled for us growing up. If we grew up in a very intellectual household where things were mentally discussed, but nobody ever talked about how they were feeling, it's likely that unless you were born with an incredible heart at a soul level, you probably don't know how to access your heart. Or if things have happened around you, then the process of being in your body may be something that you were trained out of. So I go through the process and I first teach people how to be aware. And then the very easiest place to begin is to teach people how to drop back into their bones because our bones give us a very clear sense of steadiness and stability. And it's lovely to watch how people's systems get clear and quiet when they drop deep into their bones. Think about it. The bones are our most, how will we say this? It's the sturdiest connective tissue we have. And when we drop deep into the bones, it brings us to the most stable, the quietest place, if you will, the inner sanctum of who we are. So whether someone's really upset or whether someone is wanting to get clarity about something that they're confused about, the bones are a really nice place. And when you learn how to embody deep in your bones, wow, does it change your meditation practice? It's it's phenomenal. There are whole states of consciousness that open up when you know how to live deeply and breathe deeply into your bones and be in the bones of who you are. So that's the easiest and most likely place for people that would love to step into something that has a big payoff right off the bat. Um, yeah, that's my favorite one for doing that for people. The second place that I love to teach people about is the heart. And the heart actually is the home of our deepest inspiration. And this inspiration is something that as human beings, we all have. The question is, were you trained out of your inspiration? Do you know how to reclaim it? And do you know how to get the rest of your system on board so that you can follow through with something that makes your heart ignite? See, look at the language of that. And people talk about, oh, my heart was on fire, or that really, really got me inspired, and my heart was just glowing. And we know this to be true. And the question is, do you listen to it? Or do you let your thinking capacity all by itself, make all the decisions for you? I mean, the poor brain has gotten a really bad rap because the brain actually is a wonderful part of this body wisdom that I'm talking about, but it's just not meant to be the captain. It's not meant to be the king or the queen. We're meant to have all the other parts of ourselves, like a committee, letting the heart know and letting the brain know what it needs to do in order to make the best strategies and map maybe and decisions and creating that it can do. Okay, so the heart is our deep inspiration. The gut is, of course, if something is really right or really off. And a lot of people, we talk in our culture about second guessing ourselves. We have the first guess is the gut, and then the second guess will happen if you take what it is that you learned in your heart, in your gut, and you go and think about it too much. That's second guessing. You get a really deep intuitive wisdom and then you second guess it. That's deadly. So the gut is about our deep um, hunches, our direct knowing. It's really fast. And it's a very, very powerful part of who we are. The thing I like to talk about, and I talk about this in spades in my book, is that I like to see people working from an educated gut. I like for the gut to be speaking to the head all the time and the head to be in direct connection with the gut. Yes. So that's a good one. The pelvis is the engine of the body. And that actually is, we often know that as the black sheep of our body wisdom areas because the pelvis has kind of gotten a bad rap. People either live in it too much or they don't know how to be there at all. The pelvis is a very easy place to have trauma exist. There's so many things that can happen, from falls onto your sacrum and your in sports to rape and um, all the kinds of things that can happen in the pelvic floor. There's surgeries that can be very traumatizing to the pelvis. And so the engine of the body gets hampered. And then you find yourself running on 4 cylinders when you should be running on 8, so to speak. The feet and legs really get the right and left hemispheres of the brain talking to each other. So if you can get your feet and legs moving around whatever it is that's going on in the rest of the body, it activates things and helps you to move into what it is you want to do and to know what you want to do, to digest it so that you can come to a decision that really makes sense for you and you can take an action. Yeah. So all of these areas, and these, by the way, this is the interesting piece, Stephen. These areas are really what I say is like the major metropolises of your body. These are the major neighborhoods that each have their own characteristic wisdom. Within the body itself, what I know from doing craniosacral as long as I have, gosh, going on 35 years, is that every cell of our body has intelligence, every cell. So there are minor neighborhoods, there are cellular intelligence areas that have their own specific flavor of one of these kinds of wisdom, but in their own unique way. So I'm just giving you the bigger neighborhoods, the 6 major wisdom areas of the body, if you will. And all of them should be working with particularly the prefrontal cortex, but the brain itself is meant to be deeply connected with all of this. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that fascinating tour. And there's so much that we could go into in each area. But let's say you
Yeah.
have a question that you really want to gain clarity on. What would be a practice? You could just really guide us in a practice that you can begin to use this framework of the different body intelligence areas as a portal to real answers that are more sophisticated, like you're saying, that really draw together the wisdom of multiple centers.
Well, I would say that if I were just to choose one center, um, it's interesting because the bones absolutely come forward, but also there's something very magical about the feet and legs because there's actually I'm trying to remember. I actually wrote about him in my book, and now his name escapes me. But he was talking about leading a whole group of people to the Middle East in the early 1990s, and there had been a terrorist attack of some kind, and he was absolutely confounded as to what he should do with this whole tour that he was supposed to take people on, and he went round and round, and people were calling him from all over the place saying, "Don't you dare go, it would be dangerous." And other people were calling and saying, "Don't you dare cancel this." I mean, it was really fascinating to see how everything, oh, it was Greg Braden, how everything was just swirling in his head. And he talked about in his book putting on his hiking shoes and going out and taking a long walk on a trail that he would typically go to get in touch with his inner wisdom. Now, because he's a heart math person, he was actually talking about it being the voice of his heart. But if you listen to what he said, it was actually by going and activating his feet and legs and getting them moving that his whole system came into gear and gave him the information he needed. He came back from that walk and chose to do the tour. And in the aftermath, he tells it was the best tour he's ever done. They had special entry to places that no one had been in centuries. It was absolutely safe because they were going to make sure that nothing else happened. And it was phenomenal. But it was by activating the wisdom area of his feet and legs that he came to that decision. And the decision then probably also involved a gut sense, a heartfelt sense, bone wisdom of knowing it was really, really the right thing to do. If the listeners now would be willing, think of a question that you actually do not know an answer to. And take a moment, think about what it is, something in your life. By the way, please don't make it your tsunami. Don't make it the most incredible and difficult question in your life, but something where you just have you're not really quite sure. You're not really quite sure what direction to take things in. Perhaps you have lots of data and really too much data, or perhaps there's a lot of emotion swirling around whatever this issue is. Perhaps there's past experiences that are coloring your capacity to make this decision. So however you're thinking or working with it, get your issue in mind, okay? And then take a moment and close your eyes, get your feet on the floor, let yourself just drop in to the internal sensations of your body and your breathing. Take a moment now and just follow your breath. And it works even better if you allow yourself to breathe in and out through your nose. And as you're breathing in and out through your nose, allow yourself to feel the sensations of your lungs and your chest rising and falling. What are the sensations? Is it warm or cool? Yeah. And take a moment now as you're breathing in and out through your nose at a pace that's easy and comfortable for you. Begin to allow yourself to feel your spine resting back against whatever is supporting you right now. What's the sensation of your spine and the support that's there for it? My spine feels firm and rested. It feels straight, it feels nice. Notice what your spine feels like right there. Good, good. And keeping your eyes closed, just very gently begin to feel what's happening all the way down your spine into your sitting bones, whatever you're resting on right now, whatever support you have. And I'm going to actually ask you to drop all the way down into your feet and legs. So let your feet be resting on the floor. A little more difficult if they're tucked up underneath of you. Yeah. Good. Yeah. And get curious about what your feet and legs feel like right now without trying to change anything. Bring your curiosity on board. Good. How do your feet feel resting on the earth right now? On the carpet, the floor, the ground, whatever is underneath the soles of your feet. Do you feel your heels as keenly as you feel the balls of your feet? Good. Good. And just notice as we've been listening and paying attention to just simple first order sensations, warmth or coolness. You may have traveled through an area that felt spacious or dense. You may be noticing somewhere inside yourself that there's an area that feels vacant or that's in pain. Yeah, and right beside it might be an area that feels comfortable and solid. Just notice what it feels like to be you in this moment in time. Yeah. Notice where you're most present. Yeah. And as you do that, allow yourself to drop back again deep into your bones. Breathe into your bones. Our bones are actually made up of, they're like sponges. They have air spaces. So imagine that you can breathe into those air spaces. Good. Yeah. So that you're dropping deeper and deeper into the sanctum, the inner sanctum of who you are, into the quiet, into the stillness. Yeah. And allow the mud to settle. If there's any emotional charge around this decision, this issue that you're thinking about, allow yourself to let that mud just settle as you sit and breathe, inhaling and exhaling deep in your bones. And notice as you do this, and as the mud settles, a little bit or a lot, that you are in clear water now, and that it's much easier to see the circumstances and the situation as it is, not necessarily as you want it to be, but as it actually is. And also to be able to see new possibilities because your thoughts and emotions are not crowding out the screen of your perception. You can actually think creatively and clearly from this place deep in your bones. Good, good, good. This is great. You're doing a good job. And take another 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and allow yourself to gather whatever else you need to know about this situation deep in your bones. Yeah. And as you finish up, allow all of the wisdom that you've gathered to let it expand out into all the other cells of your body, and particularly to connect up into your brain so that your brain now has this wisdom that's been gathered from your bones and the other parts of who you are, so that a really good strategy can grow from this wisdom. The brain is one of the most amazing map makers. It knows how to take things, felt sense, hunches, visual imagery, and create something new. Yes, so allow it to do that now with this knowing that's come out of your bones. And when you're ready, let your eyes open, come on back onto this call. You might want to take a minute or two and make some notes while Stephen and I go on, but do notice what it is that your bones told you about this circumstance or this issue in your life.
I thought that was truly fascinating, Suzanne. And one thing that I hadn't, it never, I guess it occurred to me was that the air and the bones kind of create this interesting sense of spaciousness as well as the solidity. So as I was
Yeah.
tuning in a situation, as acquiring a property that is going to be a community property that for an extended tribe of things, it was just like just one step in front of the other. It's like the trajectory is
Right.
right, but make sure each one is solid. So there's kind of this spaciousness to the bone intelligence that's also
Right.
very structured. It's not like it's impulsive or you know, you just like go off willy nilly, and it's just like methodical. Boom, boom, boom. At least that's what's
Yes,
coming
and
through for me.
yeah, I love it. It's like it is the sturdiest connective tissue in our body, even though it's riddled with these what I call air spaces. Of course, there isn't oxygen in those spaces. It is more it's filled with all kinds of wonderful other life-giving nutrients. But it's why we don't weigh 800 pounds because we have all these air spaces in our bones. So it's kind of fun to think about it that way. And I've actually, Stephen, I love what you just said because I've never really thought about how it brings a quality of spaciousness to the wisdom of the bones because of that. Yeah, that's great.
Hmm. That's great. Well, I'm sure people are writing down lots of interesting insights, but let's continue with some of so you've I think illuminated a lot about the gut and the bones. You touched a little bit on the feet and legs, and I think last time I spoke, it was one of the areas that I hadn't really addressed nearly as much. So going for a walk is not just a way to clear your mind, as some people say. It's actually to activate this a deeper intelligence from your feet and your legs. So maybe share about when is the wisdom of the feet and legs particularly valuable, and what are some other ways that we can access that?
Well, it's very interesting because the feet and legs are specifically helpful when you have lots of options and you can't make up your mind. Because oftentimes, and these are, a good friend of mine was the one who really brought this forward for me. He had been given the diagnosis of prostate cancer, and being a physician himself, he knew that there were many, many different options for the diagnosis that he'd been given, and he researched and researched and researched, given who he was, and boy, he could not make up his mind. And actually, we were at a conference together, and I did a meditation where I had people not actually taking a walk, but imagining themselves taking a walk in one of their favorite places. It was not a long walk, maybe 5 minutes. But when we came back from that meditation, I looked down at him sitting there on the front row and he gave me the thumbs up and he told me later he got the answer as to which direction he would need to go in order to be treated optimally for his prostate cancer. And it was very successful. He went ahead with he'd been kind of stymied and stuck and then he went ahead with it and it was very successful. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
And so
Another area
yeah.
we mentioned that we would cover in some depth was around with the heart intelligence. A lot of times people will end up focusing only on the front of the heart, but the back of the heart also has some real keys and wisdom in it as well. So let me share more about that.
You know, here's an interesting thing about the heart because it was years into working with the heart before I began to discover this front of the heart, back of the heart thing. I, of course, am a caregiver. I'm a craniosacral therapist. I've worked with this for many, many years. And so I am used to standing in front of a room with people whose hearts are open. I would say the front of the heart is open. They're caregivers as well. They're healthcare people, providers of one kind or another, and they're used to loving the world. This is naturally who they are. And they shine this way. It's like the heart just expands into the world. But the thing that I was seeing in my classes is if people like this were not also living in the back of their heart, the deep heart, the well of the heart, where we do our self love, the capacity to really rejuvenate ourselves and take care of ourselves, then there's a pretty high burnout rate. There are a lot of words for it today. They call it compassion fatigue, they call it burnout, they call it uh, overwhelm, whatever you want to call it. Professionally, many times, if someone is a caregiver and they're not acting from the deep well of their heart, rejuvenating themselves, putting their own oxygen mask on first, if you will, as the airlines tell us, then you will burn out. And it's such a sad thing to see really good people that love, oh, they have such wonderful hearts, start to get to feeling very dry and um, uninspired by what they were doing in their life that really was a big portion of their joy. So it's wonderful to teach people how to get into the deep heart. And that's a whole nother experience, the well of the heart and connecting the front and the back of the heart.
Hmm. Fascinating. And one
Yeah.
other thing we mentioned that we were going to cover today has to do with the myths that may be blocking us from accessing our body's wisdom in any single moment. So, what are some of the myths that we carry about being able to access these different areas of wisdom?
Well, one of the major myths that I grew up with was that the body was evil, right? That it was going to lead me down a path that was sinful and oh my God, I'm no way do I want to trust my body. And particularly if you've had trauma of one kind or another, it's like, oh no, no, I'm not going back there. That was really dangerous and scary and it felt bad the first time. I'm not doing that again. You also have the myth of the brain knows far more than the body. It's like the dumb body. The brain is the one that's got all the wisdom and the intellect and the intelligence. In fact, when someone's whole entire system is integrated with the brain, there's such a deeper, really such a deeper level of intelligence than if it's just this dry intelligence of the mind. Um, and so people, for instance, that get good gut hunches, who end up always second guessing their hunches, and they get a really good hit, and then spend weeks going around and round about it. It's like a waste of time. But that's where they really, in the end, believe, usually because of their education, that the intellect is definitely more powerful and more finely tuned. And I'm here to tell you that the intellect is powerful and it is finely tuned, and the body has a wisdom far more primal and deep than what we know in our brain, and that we're actually really meant to have both of them working together. So that myth about the body. Then there's the other myth that the body's just meant to be driven like a horse until it drops. That I'm just gonna override everything my body tells me and work it, work it, work it. And there are a lot of different people who are very disciplined. And again, this is where the burnout comes in, who they're really not listening to their bodies, and it's sad to watch that occur. The other piece is the idea that in the body live our emotional states, such as anger or fear. And gosh, I don't ever want to feel those again. When people have had trauma growing up, that can be a piece that is very, very, it's very scary then to re-enter and reclaim areas where trauma may have happened. Yeah, yeah. And I know there's a fifth one. I'm going to pull it up here momentarily, but these are things that are ways in which people make excuses for not embodying. And as I said, there are 4 or 5 favorite ways that I watch people hang out in their head or hang out beside themselves, right? Not even in their heads, sort of disembodied because it's too much or it's too scary or it doesn't make sense or why would I do that? Yeah.
Well, I love that, the idea that it's like the vision that comes to me as the CEO of a company is like if you only had one listening to, you're not going to make very good decisions for the whole. And so it's like you want to have a council of
Yeah.
wisdom in different areas. It's complementary to really be able to make great decisions and move forward and access this different threads of intuition. I think it's been really illuminating how you've talked about that from the deeper security needs in the gut to some of the intelligence of in the bones around creating that solidity and structure to really really fascinating. So I'd love for maybe just how do you weave this into like a daily practice? Like how do you starting in the morning, what does it look like to weave these different intelligence areas into your day?
Well, one of the things that I do on a regular basis is that when I get out of bed in the morning, actually even before I get out of bed, I do a full body scan and I check in. And that informs me about how I slept, what I may be needing when I get out of bed, In my mind's eye, I think about what I'm inspired to do that day. I touch my heart. I think about my gut and what feels right. I drop into my pelvis and I notice what my overall energy level, what's the engine of my body feeling like today? My feet and legs, how are they doing? And what do they want to really get cooking on and walking? And then I allow myself just to drop back into my bones, feel the depth and the quiet of my bones. My mind slowly kicks into gear with my dreams, perhaps. And at some point, I'm going to roll over, get my feet on the floor, and feel my full body presence so that that core embodiment of who I am is informing me throughout the entire day. Yeah, it's almost like I walk through the house and turn all the lights on internally here so that I can, at a moment's notice, drop in when I need to.
Hmm. That's beautiful. Well, there's so much that we can learn from you, Suzanne, and that's why I'm excited that this isn't the end of the journey. This is just a little taste, and we have an upcoming program with you. This is a very popular program that we're repeating with new additions and benefits. It's called Reclaiming Your Six Body Wisdom Areas: Healing from Trauma, Releasing Blocks, and Liberating Your Full Spectrum Intuition. So the title itself says a lot, that this really is a shifting from just understanding that we have these different areas of body wisdom to really engaging in daily practices that open that up, and particularly that unravel the subtle levels of trauma and blocks that often are, whether we've shut down our heart in relationship to a past relationship, or that there's like some, that we had a brush with death that really scared another area. So that there's a way in which we're kind of unwinding our nervous system, unwinding our cellular intelligence to be able to access this fuller spectrum of intelligence that you can really hear when Suzanne speaks. So she's going to be guiding this process in a very specific step-by-step way. So it's very transformational rather than just informational. So it's really about your journey of awakening all of the different body wisdom within you. So you can find this program at reclaimingbodywisdom.com. Again, that's reclaimingbodywisdom.com. And so I encourage you to go to the page if you've got the computer open, and you can just follow along a little bit. And Suzanne, I'd love for you to share in your own words, what is it that people are really going to get from doing this journey with you, and maybe take us on a tour of the modules.
Well, we will be what they will get from this particular 7 weeks, and I loved teaching this last fall, so I'm excited that I'm going to be doing it again this fall. I begin by doing a more in-depth look at the myths that your body, at your mind may actually be, and body, and the ways in which you've been overwhelmed may be keeping you out of embodiment. The first thing we have to do is to understand where we're not in order to make a new choice. So we're going to start with the 5 body myths in the first session. We'll be looking at them in more in-depth, and so that you can actually identify, oh, right, that's me. Oh boy, I resemble that one. So you start to play with, okay, because many of these things, by the way, are completely unconscious. And then you can say, okay, where do I want to go with it from here? This is a really key piece. So knowing that, then we'll be working with what are the antidotes for that, and where do you want to go from here? Then we will actually, in each of the following modules, be diving into a wisdom area each time and doing it in a really profound way, an experiential way. There will be didactic information, and then I will actually be taking you into explorations like we've had tastes of today, where we begin to play with and work with what it is that you want from this area and what is your body wisdom saying to you. So we'll start with the heart. I believe we then go on to the gut. We'll go on to the pelvis, what might be there and how to open it. We'll go to the feet and legs and how they inform us and can take you and move you forward. Then we'll drop deep into the bones and begin to work with that clarity and that depth of steadiness that's there. And then we'll bring it all back and connect it up into the brain itself so that you begin to have your deepest inspirations and the issues that have been getting in the way in your life begin to shift and change and transform. So your inspirations begin to be manifest, and the things that were blocking you begin to dissolve, and you're able to step into your life at a level that you came here to do, at a soul level. So this is a really exciting and key piece for me, because I feel like I'm going right to the heart of who we are as human beings and showing you how to unlock the keys to who you are at a soul level.
I love that. At a soul level and living in these beautiful bodies we've been given and really accessing the
Yeah.
full intelligence and blessing of them. So I would encourage everybody to go to the page at reclaimingbodywisdom.com and you can see more details on this program. I'll mention a few other things. So first of all, this is really there's no professional expertise or background required for this. This is if you're just recognizing that there's some deep truths that you want to access and embody in your life, if there's traumas you want to clear, if there's intuition you want to gain access to, if there's a kind of a felt sense of being at home in your body that you're missing somehow, or that your spiritual past practices have really taken you a little bit up and out, and this helps you drop fully down into your body in a deeper way, which helps your meditations, it helps your intuition, helps you just your sense of being at peace with yourself. So the program is going to be a live stream video program with Suzanne, so she can do demonstrations of different things. It's a part of being in bodies that you can see each other in a more profound way. And she mentioned the overall modules. You can see them on the page. I'll just read the titles out loud so you get that arc again. There's the module 1 on busting the 5 body myths, derailing your body awareness. Then module 2 on discovering and reclaiming the front and back of your heart. Module 3 on embracing the wisdom of your gut and expanding instinctual knowing. Module 4 on open to the ancient primal power of your pelvis for more joy and sensuality. Module 5 is on the legs and feet to step into your healthy energy flow. Module 6 on the clarity and steadiness in your bones to live from your core. And then Module 7 on the brain's power to interconnect with all your wisdom areas. So you can see in just what Suzanne has said and reading those module titles, it's really a very comprehensive system that you're getting. It's not just a couple of one-off inspirations. It's really about a systematic way of opening your full body intelligence and body wisdom so you can navigate life in a better way. So you're going to get, if you choose to join, you're going to get not only the 90-minute class sessions with Suzanne every week, which is all video-based. You get video recordings of each class session. You're going to get transcripts. You're going to also get audios. There's small group practices sessions. We have a Facebook community that often gets very robust and very satisfying to create real connections across the world with people. And we also have some extra bonuses as well. So first of all, we have a very rich bonus it's from the Body Intelligence Summit in 2016. So we really gathered the world leaders from many different disciplines that all relate to body intelligence. It's a $200 value just by itself. And you get access to all these amazing insights, of which Suzanne is one of the clear leaders. And there's also an audio interview between Suzanne and Paul Samuel Dolman. This is called What Matters Most. There's a third bonus called Basic Relaxation and Energization Exercises. This is an audio package from Suzanne. Suzanne, you want to share anything about that particular extra bonus?
Actually, that's sort of the cornerstone of everything that I do, is the ability to drop inside, notice where you are, and to fill every cell of your body purposefully, mindfully, and energetically with what would nourish you most, so that you end up with a full container to be working with all of these different concepts that I'm going to be talking about. That's a really nice one because it has a 10-minute grounding and filling, a 17-minute, and then a whole 40-minute one if you really are in trouble and needing me to guide you through an exploration of your system that would really take you into every nook and cranny. Yeah.
I love that. I love that we kind of opened every nook and cranny, and each has some gifts for us when we open to them. So the final bonus is something that we have available only today. We like to do this as a way to incentivize you to go to the page at reclaimingbodywisdom.com, give it a read, tune in with all your centers, your heart, your gut, your pelvis, your bones, and if you're getting this full body yes, or even just a little twinkling of a yes, then you have an extra incentive to do so today, to register today. So this is bonus available until midnight. It's called the Journey Home to Ourselves. This is a $69 bonus. It's a 7-hour audio series from Suzanne that includes 10 sessions and over 7 hours of audio. So this is a powerful adjunct to the program, and really it's also something that when you sign up you can get access to right away, so you can begin this journey right away, since the program starts in just a couple weeks on September 25th. It's going to run on Tuesdays at noon Pacific time. But when you get registered today, you're going to be able to get going and begin this unfolding, deepening, blossoming journey that you're going to be so blessed to go on right away. So Suzanne, you want to say anything about that special bonus, which is available until midnight tonight?
Actually, that particular bonus has 10 sessions that teach people how to drop inside and fill up with what would nourish them most from almost every avenue and door you could come in, through the food that you eat, through nature, through being in relationship with another person, through your conscious awareness, through breath, through movement and sound. In the deep of winter, there's actually a 20-minute one about being able to connect deep into the earth in the core of winter, when things can get very cold and dry, and to nourish and bring warmth and moisture to the cells of your body. I mean, they're all different things that are in that comprehensive set. There's also a very pivotal particular exercise that I call Exploration 3, Healing the Internal Resistance to Life, which is one where I walk people through what skills and signals do you need in order to be able to begin to hold and love the parts of yourself that you're locked out of. That's a very pivotal piece. So that is a wonderful bonus. And from what I'm saying, I think this is something that would be very, very helpful to listen to parts of before we begin this 7-week segment. So thank you for offering that. I think that's a great bonus.
Well, thank you. It's coming from you. So we're really blessed that you're being so generous with this program. So you get all of this, the whole 7 weeks, you get all the extra bonuses, you get the special bonuses from today. Just the bonuses alone are valued at $300 or more. And you get this for just one reasonable investment. It's just 3 payments of $109, or you can save about 10% when you pay in full at $297. So it's a great investment in yourself. These are practices that aren't just short-term inspiration, but things that can really sustain you for a lifetime and help open up new areas for intuition, to clear trauma. It's really a kind of a gift that keeps giving when you choose to participate in this. So you can find all the details again at reclaimingbodywisdom.com. The course is starting in just by September 25th. And when you sign up by midnight tonight, you get the extra Journey Home to Ourselves audio program from Suzanne. So great stuff. Well, Suzanne, it's been a wonderful hour. I love learning from you, and anything that still is on your heart and mind and gut and pelvis that you want to share with folks who are still considering whether to join you for this upcoming journey.
I would just say that in the world today, because of the level of anxiety that most people are living with and uncertainty, there is a quality of love and tenderness and nurturing that our body has for us. I mean, we are meant to have a very deep and friendly relationship with our own body, each one of us. And this journey back to really being deeply in our bodies and feeling comfortable in our own skins and being able to feel the wisdom that's here is the best guidance system that we can have for these times that are, at certain moments, turbulent and confusing and scary. So I am so excited that people have been so generous with me in terms of where I got all of this growth from across the last 40 years, and that I get to share it with you, that I've synthesized so much and brought it back and brought it forward to you so that you can have the skills that you need going forward in the world today. So come join me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, it's clear that you're coming from a place of deep fulfillment and great generosity in sharing this wisdom that you've harvested over decades. So thank you for this hour, and thank you for your upcoming program. And thank you for just opening up this new field of understanding for all of us, because I think it is the next missing link in all of our spiritual journeys to really incarnate our soul and live the full lives that we're here to live. So thank you, Suzanne, and thank you all for joining. And do sign up right away if you are feeling pulled, because you get the extra bonus, the robust journey home to ourselves, when you do so today. So that's at reclaimingbodywisdom.com. So see you all there, and thanks for coming today, and many blessings. And thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Stephen.